Hello and welcome to Towel Capes. I'm Cody Nestor, and the Zack Snyder apologist across from me is Todd Heel.
Hello, everyone, I guess.
Today we're here to talk about Zack Snyder's newest assault on cinema, Rebel Moon Part 2. A colony on the edge of the galaxy fights for survival against a tyrannical ruling force. Rebel Moon Part 2, The Who Gives a Shit, was released on April 19th, 2024. At time of recording, it has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 18% and an audience score of 46%. So, Todd, let's discuss this cinematic trash can emoji. Spoilers are ahead.
Okie dokie.
So, Todd, before I light into this bastard, what were your thoughts here? What did you think about Rebel Moon Part 2 compared to Part 1, Part 2 in general? What you liked, maybe? What you didn't like?
I think if we're comparing it to Part 1, I don't want to say enjoy. Enjoy is a strong word here.
No.
I think Part 2 may have went down a little easier than Part 1.
Right. Right. The medicine goes down a little bit easier when
Right.
your second half of your movie is just an hour-long action sequence.
Exactly. I think as far as narrative wise,
Yeah.
there wasn't a lot of, to set up. We kind of knew where we were going. We knew where we were headed. We knew how we were going to get there because
Right.
this story's been told how many times now?
Yeah, it has. Here's a question: Was Part 2 necessary? Could you just made this and blown it out in like 1 3-hour movie and just been done with it?
You could have. You honestly could have tacked this on to Part 1 and been done with it, but he wasn't going to do that.
We've got to milk it out for 2 parts, and then 2 director's cuts to come, and then 6 planned sequels that. Oh, if there's a God, they'll never see the light of day.
I can tell you this: they'll probably never see my eyes.
Yeah, I wanted nothing else to do. I really wanted little to do with this universe before watching the first. I wanted nothing to do with it after, and even more so to do with this universe now after having to sit through 2 parts of this shit. Now, I've lost 4 hours of my life watching both of these films. It's really starting to hit home.
Right.
But yeah, what I'll give it before we go into the story here is, yes, it is slightly more palatable than the first.
Right.
And only the slightest more palatable than the first.
It's like saying, would you rather break your pinky toe or your big toe?
Yeah, exactly. And it's only because your last part of your second half of your movie, the last hour of the 2-hour film is mostly just action. And
Just
that's
action.
the only reason it's more palatable, because you don't have to sit through the plot.
Right.
All the plot you got from Part 1. So, yeah. But be under no illusions. This is a shit film. So if you're looking for a non-spoilers take from me, in my opinion, this is also trash. This is just as much of a trash film as the first one was. So, you want to get into the story a little bit?
Let's do it.
I got some stuff to say here, Todd.
Okay.
So we start off with the film. We get more narration for Anthony Hopkins. To save my breath, let's let him catch you up on that.
Yeah.
On the far edges of the Motherworld's reach, circling the gas giant Mara, was the small moon of Velt. There, a village of humble farmers lived a simple life, born of the earth, until the shadow of a warship fell upon their fields. The ship's commander, Admiral Noble, demanded more than Velt's people could give. So it was that a woman named Cora and a man named Gunnar set forth from the village to gather warriors to stand against the dreadnought.
So, Todd, all the characters no one gives 2 shits are back. You've got ex-soldier boy and his village girlfriend. You've got indentured servant with access to gym equipment. He's back. You got Asian goth chick with swords.
Yes.
She's back. The shit-covered general. Resistance girl, also, friend of Ray Fisher with dreads, who died in the first film.
Oh, right. She
Resistance
kind of looks
girl.
like Furiosa at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
of course, everybody's favorite robot, Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
All your favorites are back here, Todd. So we open the film, and Commander Cassius, I
What
guess.
did I call him the first time? Tin Cannibal Lecter. Yeah, that's who he is.
Yeah, that's Noble. Cassius is
yeah.
Cassius is his other stooge that is
okay.
watching him get revived. You want to explain how they bring Noble Tin Cannibal Lecter back to life here, Todd.
They got some kind of stuff going into them. It looks like red icy and blue icy kind of cords.
Yeah, they're pumping blue raspberry and cherry icy
that's
into
right.
him.
That would revive me, folks. That's all I got.
I was going to say, yeah.
So he's kind of in some kind of like, is it fluid type bag, cocoonish type stuff?
Like chrysalis or something
A
like
chrysalis,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what they call it. Yeah, he looks like somebody's like came all over him.
And they're pumping him full of that like red fluid, blue fluid, and he just kind of eventually just kind of rips his face out.
Yeah. The point is, your bad guy, McBad Guy Noble, from the first part of the film, he's alive and well.
He's back.
And now he's setting the course for Velt. He's wanting to get the Scargiver, Cora. He's wanting to find her and I guess obliterate the rest of that little village of grain off the face of the planet.
After they get their grain, they still want their grain. Yeah.
Yeah, at this point, they still want the grain, which we'll talk about, Todd. So who I'll call the Six Stooges, because that's who we got left. Our 7 samurais now down to 6 stooges. They get back to the village. They deliver the good news. It's short-lived, though, as an ex-soldier boy who doesn't like sexual assault, from the first film. He tells them that the bad guys are going to arrive in 5 days. Here's my first question to you. Why does that guy Cassius, why does he tell ex-soldier boy that they're going to be there in 5 days?
Yeah, why would he let him know?
Wouldn't the element of surprise be a lot better in this situation?
Better. Yeah.
So
we just show up, get our grain, blow you out of orbit, we're gone.
We don't give you 5 days of prep time.
Yeah.
I mean, in the context of watching it at that point, do you think Cassius knows that guy's Flip? Because there's a scene later on where him and Noble are standing around. Noble's like, well, obviously the others are dead, and he's chosen a side. Are we led to believe that guy didn't suss that out for himself? Is that what we're going with here?
I think that's what they want us to believe. I think that's what Zach wants us to believe. He wants us to buy into that.
Oh, yes. Oh, Zach. So, yeah, we get the general. He addresses the village and tells them that they must bring the crop in 3 days. Meanwhile, and this is a problem I have, I'll address a little bit later, Cora just stands around just half crying. That's what she kind of does most of the movie.
Yeah.
So Gunnar and Cora make out while standing on a cheap set in front of a green screen. I love that little shot there, yeah. After some sex, Cora reveals her backstory to Gunnar. So during the flashback, we get more of that fisheye lens, blurred edge bullshit that Snyder was doing in the first film. And I mean, this entire film, just like the first, looks like shit. It looks like a TV show made for the Sci-Fi Channel, Todd.
It does. It really does.
It really looks like a cheap piece of shit. And I'm sure there's some money behind this, but yeah. You wanna explain? I'm gonna launch into it too, but you want to explain what happens in Cora's backstory?
So this is back when she was. Well, I think they were called the Imperium. She was an Imperium soldier or trainee.
She's the adopted daughter of Basil something, Basil Oregano, Basilaris, I don't know, some bullshit. She's his adopted daughter. He's like the regent now after they assassinated the king.
Carrie Elways, I guess Elways, Russ Wheeler.
Russ Wheeler.
His family, the royal family, which would be him, his queen, and their young daughter, they're kind of on board. I guess it was their ship. Not their ship, but the other.
Yeah, Basilarius or whoever, him and his minions are kind of receiving them.
The Imperium ship, they're kind of, I guess they're having like maybe a little get together because there's some people with eyeball bags over their head playing violins.
Here we go. So yeah, as the king and his wife and Princess Issa walk into the room, on the right side of the room, you've got the violinists. The sack-headed violinists who are blinded. They have these black sacks over their head with some kind of insignia emblazoned on it, and they're just slowly playing the violin, just announcing the king and his family's there. And this scene, I think this is 20 minutes in, something like that.
Yeah.
And this made me want to instantly just start shutting that off. But this is where I think. This is why I know just Zack Snyder's just sitting there behind the camera just beating his dick. Just like,
look at them eyeballs on them black sacks on their heads.
You got the royal family that enter the room, and it's just like, it's Zack Snyder's Julius Caesar in space, baby.
Oh, yeah,
and
that's what it was.
He's just beating his dick, and it's getting more and more engorged by the second.
It was E2 Brute in space.
Exactly, and that's all, and that's exactly what it is. It's Zack Snyder's Julius Caesar in space, and then, Cora and her and her dad and the other space senators, they start stabbing, overacting Carrie Elwes there and the Queen. And while all this is going down, do the blindfolded violinists, do they stop playing and recoil in horror? No, they start playing even faster, more tense music to match the scenery and the imagery we're seeing on scene, Todd.
I think people's getting killed. Let's pick up the pace, boys.
Yeah, exactly. They just start playing faster. Let's play in time with the action and violence that's going on screen in front of us right now. Let's do that. And this is where Zack Snyder, he's about to come. He's like, he's watching. He's imagining himself walking across stage to get that Best Director Oscar. Oh God, he's about to. He's just getting more engorged. But Zack, reality sets in, and turns out you're just batting your dick around in a Wendy's bathroom for the last 45 minutes. You fucking insufferable fuck.
Welcome to our final episode, folks.
I'm telling you, Todd, this whole thing and him, I'm so over him. I'm so over the defenders of him and this fucking subpar, mediocre, trash garbage he's been putting out for the last several years. I'm so over it.
I'm right there with you,
I
man.
kind of defended him a little bit in the first, when we talked about part one. There's no defense of this man. And you know what? The other part that pisses me off about him making these movies is because he gets to sit around and do press and interviews and talk about how Batman should kill and how all this kind of stuff. And he just keeps running his goddamn mouth about all this stuff that he has absolutely no clue about what makes a good film anymore. No. Maybe there was a twinge of talent there that was kind of in the beginning, and it was kind of shepherded and kind of guided by some other talented people around him. But now that he's just been left to his own devices, it's all it's all out in the open now. We all see it for what it is, man.
He's basically just, I would say, when it comes to characterizations, he's tone deaf.
Yeah.
I mean, literally tone deaf.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just
you can go back to Batman v Superman and him not knowing what to do with Jimmy Olsen, so he just made him some kind of CIA agent that got his head blowed off within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, it just, when he's left to his own devices and he's the guy that's directing and he's writing and he's formulating the story and he's doing the cinematography, you just get this big pile of shit, and that's all it is. It's an ugly, terribly written, terribly acted, terribly directed pile of shit. And we've seen 4 hours of it now, and I'm so over it. And this scene, just with other stuff that we're going to talk about, is just more evidence that this dude really he's earned that title, that Hack Snyder. That he's earned that title of Hack Snyder.
Right.
Again, maybe he had some flashes of actual talent in the beginning, and that was kind of working with good cinematographers and working alongside of talented people and getting under the tutelage of a Christopher Nolan and stuff in his early days, and kind of being in that mold. Maybe that was kind of give him a little bit of guidance there, but now he's just let loose, boy. It's every man for themselves here. Do you want to explain basically the how they set her up and what she does from there, Todd?
So if we're back to the
still
Julius Caesar scene.
Yeah, still in Julius Caesar flashback.
So they want Cora to, I guess, kind of finally completely go over to her dark side and kill the young princess.
Yes.
And she's kind of inner battling that, but she does shoot her.
Yeah.
And when she shoots her, the young princess just kind of falls and sparkly stuff is coming from her. And I immediately think to myself, she ain't dead. She is not dead.
Right. Yeah. Anybody with half a brain probably believes that she's either not dead. If she's dead physically, then some part of her lives on, because she's shown in the first film to have these kind of healing abilities, and there's more to her than meets the eye. One would say. You know what I'm saying? Exactly.
I'm sorry.
Exactly. But yeah, what happens with the setup there?
So basically, we kind of go back to our, I'll just call it the Wheat Planet. I don't remember its real name.
Oh, yeah. Well, you forgot. They set her up for all of it.
Oh, yeah. She takes the fall for all of it.
Yeah.
They drag her out. She takes the fall for everything. Because they start saying, she killed the king. She killed the queen. She killed the royal family.
And him and all the other space senators just go along with it. And they pin the whole
thing
murder
on
of the royal family on her. And that's where she takes off and go pick them up from there, Todd.
So we're back on the Wheat Planet now.
You know what it's time for now, Todd?
We're going to do some harvesting.
A farming montage, baby.
We need a montage, a farming montage.
And after that, what it's time for, Todd? A training montage, And that's the first hour of the film. As we go from that setup, the backstory and that bullshit, we go right into this farming montage where they bring in the harvest, and we go right then to our training montage where they find some old leftover weapons from those guys they killed before that landed on the planet, and they set up some stuff. Apparently, in like 3 days, they were able to like completely dig these underground World War II trenches for some trench warfare. They did that in 3 days. They got weapons training in 3 days. They drug out her fucking crashed drop ship. She came in. They drug out all that stuff done in 3 days, Todd, because they only had 5, but they done it ahead of schedule.
It's like, here's this weak soldier lady. Step here with this knife. Chop his head off. Chop his arm off. Next. Chop his head off. Chop his arm off. Next.
Exactly. You'll be fine.
You'll be fine.
You'll be fine. And then after it's the farming montage done and the training montage done, it's now time for Tragic Backstories Roundtable.
Oh yeah.
So they go into everything's calmed down. They're all 6 of them are gathered in one of the huts at night, and they all go around the table. The general says we need to know who we're fighting alongside. We need to be able to trust them. So let's all reveal our tragic backstories. Right. So the dirty general, he says he was just supposed to destroy a city, and he refused. So his men were captured. So he surrendered to save their lives, but Belisarius still killed them. His lesson, his takeaway, Todd: never surrender. Never surrender. Then we got Resistance Girl. So she says her village elders gave into the mother world. She was sent to a labor camp. She was rescued by Ray Fisher with dreads, and now she fights for the little guy.
Nice.
That's her arc. Asian goth chick, also known as Nemesis. The Imperium slaughtered her fishing village, so she found her people's weapons of war, chopped off her own arms, and slapped on some robot gauntlets in their place.
Nice.
She does say her people knew how to make war, but I mean, are we supposed to believe that it doesn't look like she's ever killed anybody in a day of her life, but she's like, oh, I got my magic robot hands now. I'm a weapon of death. You know what I mean?
Right,
We're just like 0 to 100 here, baby. Then we go to Indentured Servant with a total gem. His parents were a king and queen. The Imperium killed his father, the king, and when the Imperium attacked, his mother threw herself off the balcony so he would leave, or maybe so she didn't have to look at his dumb face anymore. Perhaps.
Yeah, she just literally leapt off that balcony, didn't she?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. She's like, I'm kind of done with you. And then, am I missing anything big here, Tom, before we just get to the fight?
Cora doesn't really be honest up front. She don't tell all of her tragic shit here
She
yet.
lies.
She lies.
She makes up a backstory, and then we kind of see that Titus, he knows who she is. She's Arthurlaeus and all that kind of stuff. And he kind of knows who she is. So we kind of get that little establishment as we go to kind of the battle. Because the first hour, it really is almost right on the hour mark when everything starts. So you see the Imperial and the Imperium Dreadnought show up, and it's kind of in the sky, and everybody's like, oh, here it is, it's time. And so, they kind of they hide the women and children in a hut, and the Imperium know that, and they're like, oh, there's a women and children. So our plan is we're gonna go down and kind of jaw with them a little bit.
Yeah.
Me as Noble, I'm gonna go down, I'm gonna jaw with them, I'm gonna talk to the Scargiver. Meanwhile, I'm gonna send a team in the back to get the women and children, and then we're going to use them as hostages so they surrender the grain and the Scargiver, and then we're going to get out of here.
Right.
That's pretty much the plan. So they drop down. He's kind of back and forth with Cora. He's like, hey, listen, I'll leave the village alone. Won't hurt nobody if you just come with us.
Yes.
We'll leave your little village alone. And she agrees
She was going to do it. She was going to do it. Then when she's embracing Gunner, when she's ready to leave, Gunner takes her pistol out, and he kind of signals like the old man was going to do with the hammer. He shoots like the big bell in the village that like alerts everybody that says the shit's on. It's on.
The game is on.
Yeah.
Some dude pops out of the trench underneath with a rocket launcher, blows up one of the drop ships, and then it's pretty much just it's kind of on from there. It's pretty much.
It's just a big battle scene, pretty much from there.
Yeah, exactly. It's really like you've got Dirty General and Prince McAblounge. They're kind of going around and leading kind of the foot soldiers, like the kind of up front village troops. You've got Nemesis, an ex-soldier boy, and his village girlfriend. They're in the little hut with the women and children. Yeah. Their job is kind of to protect them. Robot Anthony Hopkins, meanwhile, he's going to show up. He's off doing his own thing right now. Him and Cora have a little scene in the cave earlier where she hides her little drop ship. Yeah. But he's going to be making an appearance. And Cora and Gunner, their thing is to go to the drop ship, and they're going to try to pose as Imperium to get on
on board
Right.
the dreadnought.
Yep.
And that's kind of pretty much where Resistance girl, she's around too.
She's running around too.
Furiosa girl, she's running around. She's popping out of the top of buildings and up and going up ladders and doing all kinds of stuff. But she's around too. But here's something about. So we're definitely in spoilers here. So only 2 of the 6 die. 2 of the 6 die. Nemesis dies.
Nemesis dies.
She's having a fight with she's having a lightsaber fight in the little hut, and she gets one of her arms lopped off, and she eventually gets stabbed, and she's kind of like had this little kind of relationship with this little boy, where she's come from a tragic backstory and she lost her children. She's supposed to be like a motherly figure and like this badass warrior, and she's kind of had this kind of relationship, and he's kind of with her in her last moments, but she ends up dying. But here's the thing about that. So she dies and Gunner dies. Fuck Gunner. I don't give a fuck about Gunner. He's fucking useless. He's a useless character.
Yeah.
Oh, also, did you notice before the fight, Cora and Gunner also had time to shave and get a haircut?
Oh, nice.
Before the fight.
You got to look your best.
He shaves and she literally cuts her hair right. I mean, the dreadnought's already in the fucking orbit, and they're like, let's take a time.
I think we got time to freshen up a little bit.
I want to look good I want to look good in my casket. You know what I mean? Let me shave my head.
I wants to be a pretty corpse.
I wants to be a pretty corpse, exactly. But my point is about Nemesis here. So Gunner can die. All right, whatever. I get that. In my opinion, the general should have died. He could have completed his arc. He should have, not surrendered and led the charge. And him being the one, he should have died.
Battle to his last breath, kind of thing.
And he would have completed his arc.
His arc.
Quote unquote. If you can, I hesitate to even call it.
Use that term loosely.
Very loosely. But my thing about Nemesis, I thought they were going to actually kind of do something clever with her for a second. And of course they didn't. Clever writing and anything like that is beyond this movie. But I thought when she got the first arm lopped off, I thought they were going to go to a part where maybe she gets one lopped off, or maybe both. She gets one lopped off, and maybe the second one gets her hand gets kind of destroyed beyond repair. Mm-hmm. And her arc kind of at the end of the movie, she gets to go back from being this kind of weapon of war back to that motherly figure, the instruments of war that she kind of commands are no longer part of her.
Right.
And she kind of gets to stay in the village and kind of be that motherly figure and kind of maybe raise that kid or whatever.
Boy, that would have been deep and insightful. Nope.
Not for this movie. And I mean, some people may disagree, but I thought that would have been a better arc for her, because she's probably she's not the most interesting. She's the most visually interesting, which has made her the most interesting by default. Not because of her character or her backstory or the writing behind her. It's just because she was the most visually interesting. I think she kind of come out of it. The first film is probably most people's most liked character because, she got lightsabers and she's Asian. She's cool, And so in this one, I thought maybe that would have give her a little bit of an arc and something decent to glom onto. But no, you just kind of waste her character there, and she dies for nothing in a hut.
Pretty much.
I mean, that's pretty much where it kind of left off here. You want to talk about Resistance Girl and the mechs and stuff? Because we look like we're going to win the day, but then all of a sudden...
Then some mechs come in, and... Furiosa, Resistance Girl, and I think young Conan.
Yeah.
They kind of come to this point where they're just going to sacrifice themselves to take down that mech. And who shows up?
Yeah, she blows one up with a rocket.
Up with a rocket.
But the second one and the big next wave of Imperium starts coming in. Who comes in? Old Robot Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, I think, was his name Jimmy?
Jimmy, James. Yeah, she calls him James. Yeah. I think Jimmy's how he's
a few more extra lights up on his face, knowing he's gone into his destructo mode.
Yeah, he's going into he's going into stabbing mode basically. But yeah, he goes in, takes out the next mech with he jumps into the mech, drops a grenade, and just Superman's out of the top of it.
Oh yeah, he does a superhero landing.
It does look very Superman taking off, Man of Steel, Zack Snyder-ish type stuff. But he shows up and kind of handles that problem. So he Deus Ex Machina is that problem for him. So for all intents and purposes, that battle's over at that point. So then we're just kind of left to focus on Cora and Gunner.
On the ship.
They're on the ship, so they're aboard Noble's ship, and Cora's placed bombs in the engine room, which has a face.
I was going to ask you, didn't that thing, them fucking blue eyes light up on that thing or
it
something?
Looks at her at one point.
Yeah.
It has a face because Zack Snyder's like, oh, that'd be cool. That would be cool if it has a face.
I'm sorry.
Oh, good. The engine has a face.
We're gone.
But he's still in that Wendy's bathroom. He thinks he's on the stage at the Oscars, but he's still beating his dick in a Wendy's bathroom, Todd. But yeah, the engine room has a face. She sets bombs on the engine room's face, and she does that while Gunner continues to be completely useless. His job is just to keep the engine running.
Keep the engine humming till I get back there.
That's really what he does. Eventually, the ship is kind of alerted to Korra's presence, and Noble gives the go-ahead to obliterate the village from orbit. So, again, something they should have just done from the beginning.
Yep.
Why didn't they just nuke it from orbit?
They didn't need that grain that bad.
Yeah.
There's other grain
the
somewhere.
Thing is like, oh, well, the defenders will be like, well, he wanted them both. He wanted the Scargiver and he wanted the grain. But after the Scargiver was on the ship, he didn't need the grain anymore because they were going to head right back to the mother world, Cody. So you just blow it up from orbit, man.
And from what I'm gathering, the only reason it was even called the Scargiver was because she left a scar on him.
No, you're wrong, Todd.
Okay.
I was having a conversation with another person today. I was talking to Andrew about this before this because, like, I asked him, I was like, wait a minute, why is she called the Scargiver? And she just called the Scargiver because that was a nickname she got while she was in the Imperium Army. The fact that he gives her another scar is just another layer of like, oh, look, the Scargiver gave me a scar.
Oh, okay.
That's just that. But it's not, she's not the Scargiver. It was like, there's a whole interview that I was trying to read with Snyder about it, and he was like, you know.
God bless you, even trying to get through that.
Yeah, it was supposed to be tied into the princess and kind of the mythology and the fable of her a little bit. Look it up in your own time if you want to know, but that's not why she's called the Scargiver.
Okay.
Because I kind of thought that at first, or I thought there were going to be like some kind of actual backstory of like why she was called the Scargiver, other than what they mentioned in the first film.
Yeah.
Which was just that was kind of the nickname she was given in the army, and then also she's the Scargiver because she like rebelled against her father and all this kind of stuff. But like it's not the physical scar that she gives him.
Okay.
Which is even dumber. Which is even dumber. So yeah, she's on the ship. She's running around, and here's another thing that makes no sense about this fucking movie, Todd. So the overall design of the tech and everything, especially on that ship, makes no fucking sense. Snyder just goes in and he's like, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if we do this?" And then like nobody was there to question him or like to say, "No, Zach, that's fucking dumb."
Yeah.
Like, so he was just like left unchecked. So it's like you go and this ship is supposed to be like this big technological terror that can travel through space via this engine with a face.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, it's all fed down below with like a fucking coal engine from the Titanic.
I know.
And its main big ass cannon has a hand crank.
That's what I was going to say. That the cannon hand cranks like an old, like something on a World War II battleship.
Yeah, I mean, and that's Cody. That's what he was referencing, man. It's World War II naval combat reference, man. That's what Snyder was doing. It's multi-layered. It's multifaceted. You don't understand his directing and his writing. Fuck you. Fuck you.
Maybe we don't, or maybe it's just not for us.
Yeah, sure. I'll be happy to say this is not for me. This trash isn't for me. But yeah, the design of everything makes no sense, man. It's not clever. It's not visually interesting. When you have so much stuff clashing against, it's fucking idiotic more than it is anything. It's not interesting.
Yeah.
To have this big technological ship that's supposed to be able to travel through space powered by a fucking coal engine that's literally straight out of the Titanic. You see him down there shoveling the shit in it. She kicks a dude into the fucking flaming oven, you know, at one point. Like it's and then you have this hand crank, hand turn. Thank God for that. That really drew out the suspense. Imagine if
you just push a button and that thing locks on.
Auto locks on, you know, with it. Woo. They wouldn't have had to build the suspense of 5 minutes for cut back to that dude 5 times. I'm spinning it. Still spinning it,
We're
guys.
almost there, Captain.
We're almost there. Tell Noble we're about 3/4.
I'm 2 clicks from it, sir.
Yeah, it's not clever, man. It's not interesting. So Korra, she ends up taking a lightsaber off of some dude, the blue lightsaber. You know, they light their swords, and I don't know what it's supposed to represent. Is like, are you not supposed to be able to hold those things without some kind of glove because it's like magnetized or something? Because you know she can't. She grabs it and like shocks her or some shit, and then she has to like wrap her. You know,
and it looks like there's some kind of vapor or something coming off of it, or smoke, or is that just me?
It must be. I don't know. Maybe it's from Zach's crack pipe. I don't know.
Whoa.
I don't know. But but I mean, like, I didn't understand what he was supposed to be trying to like get across with that sword. Is like, Are they coded to Imperium? Are they magnetized or electrified? Not magnetized, electrified.
Yeah.
To like when you're touching it, maybe you have to have a glove on or something. Like I
Right.
didn't get it, but for whatever reason, she fixes up her lightsaber and wraps her cape or cloak or a piece of clothing around it. And so she's got her weapon, and her and Noble have a, I was expecting some kind of big drawn out fight, but they have a better fight in the first film.
True.
If you ask me, like this is nothing. It's just a bunch of them falling and sliding and then sliding and falling.
Because by now the bombs have exploded and that ship's falling out of orbit. So they're sliding, and fight a little bit, slide, fight a little bit.
In a bunch of CGI nothingness.
Right.
And there's no stakes and there's no drama, and they're just sliding and falling and falling and sliding. And they finally fall down and she loses her lightsaber, and you're like, uh-oh, where did it go? Oh, there's no mystery there because it's in in the background of every fucking frame that's shot after it. Like, oh, you think that sword in the background is going to come into play? You think either she or Gunner's going to get it? Because you can always see it in the background of every fucking shot after it's lost. But yeah, Gunner does get it, and he does end up stabbing what's-his-face, Noble. She kicks him down a door shaft, and he's like holding on. She like closes the door on like his torso and then lops his head off. And then it's all resolved within 5 minutes.
Good luck blue icing yourself back from that.
From that. Exactly. And they had a better fight. In the first film. Yeah, but we should mention Gunner took a bullet wound in the little fracas and then the fight with Noble at the beginning, so he's kind of bleeding out. She gets him back to the drop ship. They both get there. They again barely make it out as the engines are sputtering and not firing off, and they end up crashing somewhere outside the village, and so does the Dreadnought. And she's kind of there with him as he's kind of laying there dying. And then here's my last really big thing about our main character, Cora. All this she does in this movie is just fucking whine and cry. That's all she does. She's literally laying over him, and she literally says, "Why can't I have this one thing?" Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, listen, like she's like one of the worst protagonists in recent memory to me. Like she seems to do is whine and cry. It's like the people around her that have to do most of the heavy lifting here. Like the general is the one training people and leading people and all this stuff, and she's just kind of off doing her own devices. Yeah. And I know people shit on like Rey, from the sequel Star Wars trilogy.
True. Yeah.
I know people shit on Rey, but if I'm picking my poison here, I'll take a charismatic Rey
any day
over Cora any day.
Any day.
That's because she's a woman, Cody. You don't like her because she's a woman and she's got emotions. That's not it. She doesn't, like, she really does just sit around and whine and mope a lot. I guess she has a tragic backstory and everything, but like, she's not like your inspirational protagonist type. And maybe that's not her character, but like, what is her purpose? Like, she's a pretty blah, pretty mid protagonist, if you ask me.
Yeah.
There's not a lot redeemable about her. She's a liar. She's a child murderer.
True.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. People may defend her, but like, I really don't care for the character. And like, I'll take Rey over her any day. Yeah. And I'm not a Rey fan either.
And she's missing you could say everybody else in both parts of these things is missed. And that's good characterization, good dialogue, good story, good backstory.
And I mean, maybe I'm not really familiar with. I can't name right off anything else I've seen Sophia Boutella in. And this is not really an indictment of her. It's the material.
Yeah. I don't think there's a bad actor in this thing. I mean, Sir Anthony Hopkins, my God,
Yeah. I mean,
even though he's the voice of a robot, but still.
Yeah, I'm sure this is a paycheck for him.
It's what you've been given to portray.
Yeah, it's not an indictment in any of the actors here. I agree with you. They're all fine in their own way. There's not really any that are just terrible actors. And this is not against her. Again, it's the material and the characterization and what little she's given to work with. But a lot of it is just like most of the scenes in this movie, she's just crying. She's just standing around crying or crying over somebody or about to cry, on the verge of crying, and then it's over. That's pretty much.
Even at the end, she was still emotional. She's still very emotional.
Yeah, I mean, he's dying, but even in the final, so like the final part of it here. So, we forgot to mention the Resistance shows up, in the ship.
Oh yeah, finally.
So we can have
after every damn thing's been resolved.
Yes.
There may be a couple of stragglers to pick off, but here's the resistance,
and
baby.
they show up just so they can have Zack can put in a little X-wing versus TIE fighter battle there for just a split second.
Yeah,
we got to check that box too when we're fully whipping off Star Wars here. So yeah, the resistance come in. So at the end of it, Gunner's dead, and then Nemesis is dead, and then. So we've got them all kind of standing around, and she finally reveals her backstory to them, and she's like, I'm Arthaleus, and the general's like, yeah, bitch, I've
known that a while.
I've known for quite a while. I've known since we got into this, and she tells everyone she's been lying and reveals her name and that she killed the princess. And then, of course, as you said before, the general reveals the princess is still alive.
She's out there somewhere.
Yeah, she's out there somewhere, and they all agree to find her and fight. And I threw up in my mouth imagining having to sit through a third film after these two garbage films.
Newsflash, I'm not.
So Todd, I'll ask you this. I think we've already kind of covered it, but I'll just let you have your say with it a little bit more now that we went through the story. Which is the better film, part 1 or part 2?
By a narrow margin and not by any grand scale, it's part 2.
Yeah. Is there anything here that you liked?
Not really. I mean, if I'm being honest, let's just put this out here. This is Seven Samurai by way of Magnificent Seven with a dash of Star Wars.
Yeah.
When you started this, especially part 2 and even part 1, you know where you're going. Especially in part 2, you know how this is going to be. We got the ragtag bandits getting trained by our heroes. We're going to lose a couple of heroes. Magnificent Seven, Seven Samurai.
Yeah. Don't almost all of them die in the Magnificent Seven?
I think so. The best I can remember.
Yeah.
It's been a hot minute since I watched that. Yeah. I mean, we know the crux and the backbone of where we're going. What needed to happen was something interesting to get us there. Something to hang our hat on.
Subvert my expectations.
Yeah, something to subvert our expectations, to tweak what we knew was coming, to maybe make us, oh shit, they did that. They flipped it this way.
Yeah. Or the last hour of your action is just so mind-blowing and inventive and unique that I can at least glom onto that and say, hey, well, plot-wise, I've had to sit through 3 hours of bullshit story, but the
that last hour was fucking phenomenal visually.
Had some really nice visuals, some really cool
and
action.
It wasn't.
No. You don't get a satisfying fight between Cora and Noble. You got a more satisfying fight in the first one. None of the arcs, nobody really gets an arc. Again, you kind of could have arced the general if he would have sacrificed himself and done the thing he should have done before, sacrificing himself for the people that he cared about and his men. If he would have sacrificed himself for this band of ragtag people, which in the context, he has less reason to sacrifice himself for these fucks that he barely knows. But, something. Again, I explained what I thought would have been more interesting about doing with Nemesis's character and giving her somewhat of an arc. This was set up to milk this franchise for all it's worth, to make 3 or 4, 5, 6 movies. For me, Cora and Gunner should have not made it off the ship. That should have been their last sacrifice.
That should have been their big sacrifice.
That should have been their sacrifice. But like you said, give me something, give me a story that I can get behind or subvert my expectations or give me action that I can't deny is some of the best I've ever seen. And this film does none of that.
Yeah. And something I think you've already touched on, with Zack Snyder kind of doing the press junket for this film, backtracking to some of that old shit with the Batman v Superman, Batman should kill, all this stuff. I'm done with him. I'm personally done with him.
Yeah, he never seemed to understand.
He never got it. He just never got it.
He never did. And then, if we look back at his career, like if you say, I think his most successful films, his filmography, his most kind of universally kind of praised films are probably 300 and Watchmen.
True.
And if you look at those two things, what did they both have in common? They were damn near shot for shot of the comic books.
Exactly.
They changed subtle things, but mostly it was a script derived from both of the comics. It was a lot of the dialogue used from the comics. It was a lot of iconic shots. It was almost a one-to-one type of thing.
Yeah.
So they changed stuff and they took out the squid and they put in Dr. Manhattan and Watchmen and those kind of things. Can't be exactly like a comic book, but you understand what I'm saying is that you're trying to make that as close to the source material as possible. And then ever since then, as he veered out and he was let to do his own thing with Sucker Punch, what the fuck was that?
Right.
Then he was let to do his own thing with Man of Steel, and he was just kind of given free reign with that universe. And again, he didn't understand the character from the get-go.
Wrong tone right out of the gate.
And he wasn't following some set source material. He was doing it and doing it his own way, and then everything else from there followed suit, and it's just diminishing fucking returns.
Ever since
To where it goes from pretty good to stomachable to absolutely fucking insufferable. And that's where he's at now in his career and his work. It's absolutely kind of insufferable. And the stands and the simps and the defenders of him are almost as insufferable as he is.
That's true.
And
they've got to where they are legion.
yeah, exactly. And it's pretty fucking sad. I mean, like at one point, the dude had a lot of potential and promise and some showing of talent, and just to kind of see where we're at now and some of the things that he was allowed to do by not keeping him in check and not just giving him some of these classic properties and some of the things he was. And I'm not saying, listen, there are little bits and pieces here, even in some of the stuff that I said was stomachable. There's little. He did cast Henry Cavill, who gave us a Superman that was never able to play Superman. He gave us Henry Cavill and kind of introduced us to him and kind of helped him launch into stardom. And
right.
I'm thankful for that. He gave us some pretty cool stuff with Batfleck, even though he didn't understand that character.
True.
He gave us some pretty cool action and a really cool fight in the warehouse and some stuff like that. And he gave us the closest adaptation of Watchmen anybody will ever be able to make.
That's true, yeah.
And he did a really great adaptation of 300. And then he's give us, and Dawn of the Dead was pretty good.
Yeah.
Army of the Dead, garbage. This, Part 1. He gave us a pretty good animated Owl movie.
I never saw it.
I don't even know.
Was that the Guardians of Gahul?
Gahul, yeah.
I never saw
it's
that.
pretty
yeah.
okay. But, and it's just kind of sad where we've come. And, I mean, yes, his version of Justice League was much better.
Oh, it was definitely better than what we got theatrically.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that it wasn't better, but when he's really just left unchecked, and that's what this deal with Netflix has allowed him to do. They bought in for the Zack Snyder experience. It wasn't Zack Snyder with a competent cinematographer and a competent writer like some of these other projects. It was Zack Snyder. You come in, you make your story, you rip off Star Wars, you write it, you direct it, you do the cinematography, and this is what you get.
Yeah.
So I hope Netflix is happy with what they paid for.
Yeah,
because this is what you're left with.
That's right.
Todd, want to move on to reviews?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So we rank films on a 1 to 10 scale, starting from 1. The ranks are torture, 2 awful, 3 bad, 4 subpar, 5 mediocre, 6 decent, 7 good, 8 great, 9 amazing, 10 masterpiece. Todd, final thoughts and review score for Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver.
In my opinion, Rebel Moon Part 2 is a 3. It's bad. The only way I could recommend this to anybody is if you've already watched Part 1 and you just got some kind of morbid curiosity you need to exercise. I'm done with Rebel Moon, and unless he kind of turns it around here in the next little bit, I'm done with Zack Snyder.
Yeah, that's a big turn. Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I think people can understand the animosity I have towards this film. Again, leave the man alone, and if anyone really does hate this film and despise it as much as I do, obviously, leave the man alone and don't bully people or threaten people in real life. We don't advocate any of that kind of stuff. But
No.
I'm done with him. I hate this film. I hate what the state of filmmaking has kind of come to sometimes and nowadays. But this is just kind of a blatant rip off of better things done poorly. And like you, I'm just kind of over it. I'm over Zack Snyder, and I'm really hoping that Netflix kind of comes to their senses, and whatever plans they had for this universe goes right in the bin from here. I gave the first part the lowest score I've ever given a film since we've been doing this. I gave Part 1 a 2. I'm going to give this a 2, and I'm going to give you a little asterisk here that says this between the two. I'm going to say the first one is a 2, and this is 2.1.
Gotcha.
This is a 2.1.
Slightly better.
Slightly better, and I say slightly only because the last part is action, and I don't have to sit through the ungodly, awful writing and the plotting and some of that stuff. It's only because the last hour of this film is mostly just action I will say it's a 2.1 over the first, which was a 2. So I give Rebel Moon Part 2 a 2 out of 10, which ranks it as awful. So, Todd, tell everyone how they can find us and get in touch with us on social media.
We're at Towcapes on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Towcapes Podcast on Facebook. You can also email us at towcapespod@gmail.com.
If you enjoy the video, please consider leaving a like on this video and subscribing to our channel. Be on the lookout for this week's Popcorn Mumbles. We'll be looking at the 2011 film Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Towcapes will return next week. We want to thank you so much for watching. Till next time. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.